if I may, to take you on a strange journey. So utters the narrator, or as he's called in the opening credits, the criminologist, during his first appearance in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The journey I plan on making isn't quite as strange as the one taken most weekend nights at midnight at theaters across the country, and you won't need a suitcase or a passport to go on this journey. You don't even need newspaper, toilet paper, toast, or playing cards. Don't worry if you don't understand that. It's a Rocky Horror inside joke. But you will need an open mind and an accepting heart. Luckily, I believe that those things can be found here in abundance. The first reading is from Still the Beast is Feeding, 40 Years of Rocky Horror by Rob Bagnall. In contrast to most of the 70s self-proclaimed serious dramatic works and biblically inspired rock musicals, all of which seemed to bubble with significant issues and seemingly important ideas, but on reflection turned out to be little more than entertaining shallow diversions. The Rocky Horror Show emerged as the complete opposite. On the surface, an unashamedly inconsequential and superficial pop art comic book, with no intentional message and a playful desire simply to please and amuse, it revealed a delicious multitude of hitherto unhidden layers, some of which even its author remained unconscious of, only after repeat viewings, deep thought, and a lot of studious stripping and probing. Second reading today is from Confessions of a Transylvanian by Kevin Thies. Let me tell you something, and I'm not just blowing smoke at you. This is the truth. Rocky is not, all evidence to the contrary, just about dressing up in crazy costumes, getting on stage, and pretending to be some movie character. If it were, just about any movie would do the trick. You could do Rocky versions of Grease or Wizard of Oz, anything. Heck, it would be just as easy to dress up as Danny Zuko or Dorothy or the Tin Man or whatever and do this kind of show. Why this one? Why is this the only movie on the planet where people show up week after week, get in costume, and perform the show the way they do? I mean, why the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Because this movie is not about all that surface stuff. The essence of this movie, and by extension the point of doing the live show every weekend, is about getting rid of your fear. That's the worst thing about being a young adult, the fear. The high school anxiety, the peer pressure garbage, scared of being embarrassed or laughed at or bullied or, well, just scared of being different. That's what Rocky's all about, embracing your differentness. Seriously, if you're looking for a formula to make a 17-year-old kid less self-conscious, you could do a heck of a lot worse than letting them strut around in a bra and fishnets every weekend. Around there, the rule is let go. Just lose your fear, dump it, and then you can do what you want when you want without giving a damn what other people think who you are. It's easy to go through life scared or emotionally messed up or disappointed. It's the easiest thing in the world, hating your life. But you know what's hard? Changing all that. Doing what you actually want instead of what you're supposed to do. Not being afraid of someone calling you a loser or a dreamer or a weirdo. And that is the message of this dumb movie, and that's why they do it. Okay. You'll pardon my being a little less than formal. It is a little difficult finding business casual Rocky Horror wear. Not impossible, but a little difficult. By a show of hands, how many of you have seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Now, I don't mean just watch the movie on cable or DVD. And I definitely don't mean watching that one that Fox came out with last year. I'm not even going to get into how I feel about that. What I mean is, how many of you have been to a midnight showing of Rocky Horror Picture Show in a movie theater where the people throw things and shout at the screen, and if you're lucky, a group of dedicated individuals in costume act out the movie in front of the theater? That's great. Now, for those of you who are confused and maybe even a little nervous at this point, I'll explain. In 1973, a musical opened at a small theater in Liverpool, England. It was sort of an homage to the B-movie, horror movie films about mad scientists and aliens from outer space. The music, which you've heard a couple of samples from, was generally classic 50s style rock and roll. It did pretty well. It did well enough to move from a 63-seat theater to a 230-seat theater to a 500-seat theater, and then be brought to London in the United States and open in Los Angeles. In 1975, a movie version was released starring quite a few of the original theatrical production members. It opened to meager box office, except in one theater in Los Angeles where it sold out every night, usually to the same people, over and over again. Eventually, it was shifted to midnight showings and it gained in popularity. That's where people started bringing props and shouting at the screen and acting out the movie. For those people, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, or as it's often called, just Rocky Horror or RHPS, isn't just a movie. It's more of a hobby or possibly even a lifestyle. Now, for those of you who do know what Rocky Horror is all about and are possibly concerned about inappropriate content even for this church, please don't worry. I'm not going to quote Planet Schmanet Janet or touch me. Though maybe it would be okay to say something about consensual sex being a good thing, but I digress. I promise that this will be a PG-13 or maybe even PG-rated sermon. Rocky Horror, for me, was a major part of my getting through my formative teenage years without my head exploding. I was raised in a lily-white suburban community as the son of 2 public school teachers, one of whom taught at the school I attended. Like many high school students, I got to a point where I was both so tightly wound that I could barely think, and so down about myself and life in general that I started to fall into a deep, dark, emotional void. The first time I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show, I felt for the first time in a very long time at home, at one with and accepted by those around me. I was finally comfortable, much like the first time I attended service here at Horizon. There in that theater were people who, at least in the context of that screening, did not even consider what other people might think about their clothing or their hair or their language or their behavior, and that was something I desperately needed at that point in my life. I began going a couple of times a month. I am blessed, or cursed, possibly, with the ability to memorize lines from a movie quickly and easily. If you're curious, ask Beth if this is necessarily a good thing, because unfortunately it does get a little old fairly quickly. And the skill does not help when I'm trying to remember the third thing I'm supposed to pick up when I'm going home at the store when I'm going home. And honestly, where would I put this on my resume anyway? However, for a movie where singing along and saying lines to the screen is considered a positive thing, is almost required, this is a very useful talent. I brought friends with me. Almost all of them enjoyed it a great deal, and several kept coming back. Not as often as I did, of course, but more than a couple of times. Actually, after a little over a year, I became something of a legend in my school. The number of times I'd allegedly seen the movie ranged from 50, which was probably not too far off, to 200, which was, of course, impossible. Then high school ended, and real life and responsibilities started, as well as the waning of my ability to jump up on a Saturday or Sunday morning after going to bed at 2 or 3 a.m. So my Rocky Horror days receded into fond memories, though it was part of my bachelor party, and I have seen it a few times since then. Lately, prompted somewhat by the Fox remake of the movie, I have reflected upon the movie as more than entertainment and self-expression. And I believe that there are some things the movie in general, specific songs or at least lines from them, and the phenomenon surrounding Rocky Horror can teach us. To start with, the movie has a starring character that was an unabashed transvestite. This is what he wears for most of the movie. Now, in keeping with the PG rating, I'm only showing you the top half, but he is also wearing a garter belt and stockings and some pretty outrageous platform heels. Now, keep in mind, this was in 1975, 42 years ago, 22 years before Ellen DeGeneres caused a stir by being a gay character on a sitcom. We had a transvestite as the main character in a motion picture released by 20th Century Fox, a major motion picture distributor. And I might add one who has gay sex in the movie, implied gay sex. This was 1975, 30 years before Brokeback Mountain. I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it groundbreaking, but it was certainly daring and ahead of its time. And I think we are challenged by this denomination's faith and by the current social and political environment to also be daring and ahead of our time. As far as lessons from specific parts go, there's the song that played at the beginning of the service. Here's the chorus. There's a light over at the Frankenstein place. There's a light burning in the fireplace. There's a light in the darkness of everybody's life. Now, aside from a mention of a Gothic novel's main character, I think that's a nice lesson about eternal and unwavering hope in the face of despair. In the movie, the poor innocent couple's car has a flat tire. The spare tire is useless. They're in the middle of nowhere long before mobile phones, and it's raining. But there was still a way out of the situation. There always is. Sometimes the light comes from inside of us, but sometimes it comes from someone who has always been there for you, whether you recognized it at the time or not. The next song is The Time Warp. It's a throwback to all those "here's how you do it" dance songs. And this must be experienced to be believed. People pour out into the aisles and clap and sing along with the enthusiasm of a high school senior on his last day. And this dance is not a waltz or a foxtrot. This is aerobic exercise. And possibly, because it needs to, it ends with everyone collapsing on the floor. Now granted, laying down on the floor of your average theater isn't always a pleasant thing, but it's after midnight and it's dark, so getting a bit messy probably isn't that big of a deal. This is, to me, dance like no one is watching taken to the next level. So dance, or write, or protest, or whatever, with passion, with enthusiasm, with gusto. Now, the Time Warp is where we meet the Transylvanians, though I doubt any of them ever attended our sister church. Take a look at this group. There are people of all sizes and shapes and colors and ages. Now, granted, some movies in the 70s had diversity, but it was still pretty rare at that point. And let's face it, even supporting characters, this kind of diversity is rarely seen even in our pretty politically correct times. And I'm sure we all agree here that diversity is a very good thing. Differences help us grow and open our minds and our world. Just as people are recovering from the dance, our unlikely hero enters, and boy, does he make an entrance. I've already shown you and told you how he's dressed, and the song opens with a loud guitar riff. The song is titled Sweet Transvestite. There's no subtlety, no beating around the bush, no gentle introduction. He proudly proclaims who and what he is in, I repeat, 1975. Oh, that we could all have the courage to proclaim just as brazenly our beliefs, our politics, our true selves. Now I'll skip ahead quite a bit. Towards the end of the film, there's a musical suite called The Floor Show, and I think it has multiple lessons. In the first part of the suite, the chorus is, "Rose tint my world, keeps me safe from my trouble and pain." Now, normally when we say someone is wearing rose-colored glasses, it means they're thinking too positively. But I think this time it could also be interpreted as keeping a positive attitude and how it can keep you from being brought down by the trials and tribulations of life, whether that be a flat tire, an irritating client or customer at work, or yet another silly thing said by someone who should know better. The second part of the floor show is "Don't dream it, be it." Here I believe we're encouraged to do more than just imagine what we can do and be. Pick up that musical instrument. Sign up for that dance or cooking class. Buy those art supplies. Ask for that assignment or promotion at work. Dreams are great, but it takes action to make them real. Heck, even winning the lottery requires you to buy a ticket. The floor show suite ends with, "I'm a wild and untamed thing." It goes like this. "I'm a wild and an untamed thing. I'm a bee with a deadly sting. You get a hit and your mind goes ping. Your heart will pump and your blood will sing. So let the party and the sounds rock on. We're going to shake it till the life is gone. Rose tint my world, keep me safe from my trouble and pain. For me, this is a rousing encouragement to live fully and outrageously, to act like the people who go and see the movie at midnight once a month or more, to dress up like your inner self, to dance like no one is watching, to laugh and to sing, to point out what is silly and what's wonderful, in their case, by yelling at the screen. Finally, after a bit of a plot twist, Frank sings, "'Cause I've seen blue skies through the tears in my eyes, and I realize I'm going home." For me, it speaks to seeing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, a reward at the end of the trial, as long as we have friends, family, as long as we have a home to return to where we're loved and accepted. Whether that is a literal physical home, a spiritual home like this church, or a theater at midnight on the weekend, having a place where we can go and feel safe and valued is vital and helps us survive and thrive. So I hope you will take some of these lessons with you when you leave. Be daring and ahead of your time. There's a light in the darkness of everybody's life. Dance, sing, live with passion, whether it's the twist, time warp, or the twist or a waltz. Diversity is good. Seek it, embrace it. Be exactly who you are, whoever you are, whether it's a sweet transvestite or an unashamed liberal living in Texas or a conservative at a UU church. Rose tint your world. Look for the positive in every day and in everything. Don't dream it, be it. Work for those goals. Take that next step. Be a wild and untamed thing. Keep active mentally, physically, and emotionally. And always remember, you're welcome at home.